Hello and welcome to another Imperator Rome video. In this one I'll be going over the top 5 major changes coming to Imperator with the Livy patch and Punic Wars DLC. Characters have gotten a big shake-up with the Livy patch. No longer do you have an endless list of families, as this led to a bit of a disconnect for most players. We just didn't care enough about the families, or their names, and instead focused mostly on who was best for the job. If only politics in real life was like that. Now with the Livy patch, we have between 3 and 5 great families. These have much more power base than you'll be used to in Cicero, and making any of them upset could result in some pretty dire consequences. The great families between them expect to share 80% of all possible jobs in your country, and if they do not meet this amount, then all members of the family will lose 0.1 loyalty per month. Members of a great family are not the sum total of your characters though, as there are also minor characters that do not belong. These characters won't get married or have children unless they're being married to members of great families, but that doesn't mean their names will die out. The Julii in Rome, for example, are not a great family at the start of the game, but characters with this name will pop up from time to time as minor characters, even having the ability to become consul, and you can raise them to status of great family when your nation ranks up to the next power level. Warfare has received a big change this patch, with a complete rework of the way supply and attrition works. The mechanic has remained fairly static since the time of Eve 3's release, but with the Livy update we will see the introduction of supply trains. Each army will consume food every month, taking away from their food capacity, and while an army has more than 0 food, it will not take attrition losses, even in enemy territory. If you are in friendly territory, the army will take from the provincial food supply, but when you're in the enemy territory, you may only resupply from their food stores if you've captured the enemy's provincial capital. Armies cannot carry a whole lot of food, however, so you'll want to augment them with a new unit, the supply train. This unit moves at the same pace as heavy infantry, is absolutely atrocious in combat, and carries 50 units of food. For comparison, camels carry the next most amount of food at 3.6. Attempting to besiege an enemy fort without supply trains is an incredibly risky move, as if your army runs out of food it will start taking 5% attrition losses, or in other words, your army will wither and die within 2 years. You do have the ability to detach supply trains from your army, which leaves the majority of the remaining food with the army itself. So if you're taking on a particularly high level fort, you can cycle around your supply trains to continually keep the army supplied. With the Livy update also comes Imperator Rome's version of a mission system, with Rome and the Punic nations also getting unique missions along with the Punic Wars DLC. These work very differently to EU4's missions or Hearts of Iron's focus trees, and are sort of an amalgamation of the two. First thing to decide is which mission you want to attempt, after which you're presented with a rather long tree of missions that are dynamically catered to your own situation. For example, if you're playing as Macedon, the conquest-style missions will have you expanding your empire north into the rest of the region of Macedonia. But if you take a conquest mission later in the game, it may instead task you with expanding into Thrace or Magna Graecia. Not every mission is conquest-based though, and some missions will see you improving your land you already own. To go back to Macedon for another example, one of the branches of the economic mission is to turn the region of Pelagonia, previously named Macedonia Secunda, into a hub of food production. To start, you must be building farming settlements in all of the food-producing territories. Then you upgrade Elimia to be a city with 2 granaries, and your rewards are a huge boost in food production and storage in the region that, coupled with the new supply train system, could come in very handy in repelling or launching invasions from. Each mission seems to be about as large as some of the medium to large-sized EU4 mission trees, and with the missions themselves being dynamic, the system is much improved over what is on offer in the other titles. To make your job appointments a little bit more involved than who has the best stats, characters now come with a Statesmanship stat, which represents how good they are at their jobs. A level 10 martial character with 50% statesmanship will contribute 5 martial to their role as Epistraticos. There are a number of events that are directly attributed to having characters with high or low statesmanship too, that really increases the flavour the game has. While you still gain statesmanship as a researcher, your statesmanship amount does not affect how good you are at researching, meaning that research positions are good for training your characters to take on the admittedly less important roles in your government. The effect that this has on the game is that, generally speaking, the officers will be less effective than they were previously, but at the same time makes the decision of who to employ a little bit more involved than simply choosing the character with the highest stat. Now you need to take into account the Statesmanship level too, as a lower leveled character with high Statesmanship will absolutely be better suited to the job than a higher leveled character with no Statesmanship at all. When the game first came out, alliances were restricted so that local powers could only ever ally local powers, major powers with major powers and great powers with no one at all. This had the rather irritating effect of all of your alliances breaking the second you ranked up to the next power, which often left you vulnerable to a major counterattack by a group of lower ranked nations, all with their alliances intact. This was changed in the Cicero update, so that while you couldn't make new alliances with nations of a different rank to you, your existing alliances wouldn't immediately break. Now, with Livy, the restrictions are fully removed. A major power such as Phrygia is free to ally with a city-state in Achaia, and Rome can often find itself blocked by Carthage allying with the local tribes to their north, like Boii. The biggest change that this has resulted in for the start of the game is the more historically accurate situation for the Diadochi. Macedon and Thrace are no longer merely guaranteed by Egypt and the Seleucids, and are instead fully allied with them. This can spell doom for Phrygia if one of the Diadochi gets an itchy trigger finger, though the alliances don't often last very long, so if you're lucky at the start of the game, you're generally safe, as Egypt and the Seleucids won't often guarantee an expansive Macedonian state. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found the video useful, and you now know what to expect when you load up the 1.3 patch for the first time.